You're listening to Bedroom Beethovens, where notable music makers break down stories accompanied by songs and melodies documenting growth through their 10,000-hour journey. And me? Well, my name is Cello, your host.
It's the Bedroom Beethoven Podcast.
Whoa, you just blew my mind because nobody talks about that shit.
Thank you for this. I was looking forward to this chat, man. I love your interviews.
I thank you for what you're doing. It's excellent, and people can continue to learn the stories of these bedroom Beethovens.
How did you find out about this? Oh my God.
Having something like this to shed light on us is amazing. We really need this documentation. So people like you are definitely needed.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, sound gurus and audiophiles from around the globe. This is episode 56. Another week, another guest. This episode, I'm proud to present to you.
Beat Junkies sound.
Professionally, I'm known as DJ Rhettmatic. I represent a couple of crews, the Beat Junkies, the Visionaries, Cypress Junkies with Eric Bobo from Cypress Hill, and Crown Royale with Buff One, aka Jamal Bufford, and also Dirty Disco Squares with Prince Paul and Mr. Lamb.
A legend in scratch DJ production, a pivotal ingredient to the overall late 90s Cali underground sound. If I use a wide focus lens and look at the culture of hip-hop, all roads lead to him. And we deep dive into a wide array of topics such as why you had a breakdance if you wanted to rap. I mean, we're talking Adrien Young, Ras Kass, all your favorite MCs and musicians did it. Guerilla marketing your music in the 90s, the origination of G-Funk. Man, we get so into the weeds. He has to ask me my age because I messed so much stuff up. Look, I know KRS-One is regarded as the teacher, but for my money, it's Rhettmatic. So thanks everyone for joining us. And real quick before we get into it, if you like what I do, I try to keep the show as ad-free as possible.
When they reminisce over you, my God.
You can go to patreon.com/bedroombeethovens. It's in the show notes. You can give just $1 or $2 to help support me. Bedroombeethovens.com is the website. You know, most podcasts don't even have nice websites, so check it out. All the social media channels and YouTube are on there, and you can even write into the show. It's the same song I dance every episode. I'm sorry, I get it, but I gotta let you know so you can access the show. Support it if you choose, and above all, I just hope you enjoy what I do. Dude, Beat Junkies. Are you kidding me? Rhettmatic's here. Let's get into it.
Proper, yeah. Back on the hip hop's the DJ.
It must be pretty somber in LA with the passing of an icon.
Yeah, man, it's pretty rough, man. Before that, I had a couple of friends passed away, right, even before Kobe, right there. So then this is kind of like just LA right now is in mourning right now. It's like, especially, with Nipsey last year, now this and stuff. So
yeah, people don't realize that Kobe was a big hip hop fan. I haven't seen anyone mention this, but he was on a remix to Destiny's Child "Say My Name." He was on a Brian McKnight song. He had a track with 50 Cent.
Oh yeah, when he first came to LA, a lot of people don't know. I mean, if you listen to "Blessings" on by the Visionaries, he rhymes about this particular incident where when he first came to LA as a rookie, the Wake Up Show had an anniversary show at the Palladium, and I think Organized Confusion, Wu-Tang, the Junkies were there. I think Visionary, the Alcoholics, and they brought out Kobe to rock on a freestyle session on stage and shit, and it shook everybody out, So like Kobe, yeah, for a hot minute, Kobe was rookie year. He was like kind of down with the Liquid Crew. Obviously, a lot of people know that he was like, he went on a prom date with Brandy and stuff. So it was all that during that time and stuff. So, and Shaq just put up, I mean, just recently on his IG that he did a freestyle with Shaq where he's just busting. So yeah, he was pretty nice, kind of pretty nice on the mic. I mean, considering those other songs, he was actually pretty nice on the, pretty nice on the mic.
Yeah, I think Steve Stout wanted to take him under his wing. And at the time he made Will Smith's Big Willie style that went like 9 times platinum. So I don't know, maybe the universe just thought basketball was more of his calling, but a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, man. Like, especially in LA, I think that's why like everybody loved him in LA because he was down. He was just like, shoot. He was like, he was at the time he was just going everywhere. So people embraced him in LA. It's like he's just, culturally wise and stuff. I mean, obviously outside of LA and basketball, it's a whole bigger thing. But here, it's real special because he was down. He was down with the people here.
I guess you probably met a lot of people while you were working at Fat Beats back in the day.
In LA, we had this during the 90s. We had this hip hop club called Unity. Rest in peace to Bigger B. He used to be doing promotions for Loud Records, and he was actually the first. Because of that, he was actually one of the first people to bring Wu-Tang out to the West Coast. I mean, literally, during those days, he was like the only one that brought a lot of the East Coast acts, along with having West Coast acts. Underground West Coast acts during those days. Like it'd be Wu-Tang Clan, but then you would have the Alcoholics. Then you probably might have Freestyle Fellowship or Ras Kass. You might hire like Common and the Beat Nuts, but then you have someone like say Self Scientific during those days and stuff. It was got to met a lot of people during those days.
But I know J57 was interning there, so that's probably how you and the Brown Bag All Stars connected, right?
No, well, you got to understand. So Fat Beats started in New York. He worked during in the New York store.
Oh, so you were LA.
I was LA. LA was more like when Joe Abajian, DJ Jab, when he opened up. He opened up the New York store like late 90s, mid 90s, and then he opened up the LA store. And by that time, when you open up the LA store, he asked Babu to be the general manager, and of course, Babu was the general manager, and of course, there was a cat named Marsky, who's a LA local legend, and then eventually like J Rock, myself, New Mark, another Mark Love, who's a LA local legend, working there. Other couple of people, and this is like early, this is like the mid '90s, the beginning days. When you're talking about Brown Bag, they started working there towards the later end of the New York store and stuff like that, like the 2000s and stuff. So I've actually was one of the for LA and stuff, especially when Fat Beats was shutting both stores. I was one of the OG employees to work there, even though I was like doing stuff with the Junkies and the Visionaries and whatnot and stuff. When I have a day off, I go work over there and stuff just because I enjoy working there. But yeah.
I know you made Rhettmatic Murder on your headphones at the Cerritos Mall.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Well, I was waiting for my mom.
I'm Jack Donaghy, loan shark in the FIFA brothels, beef and broccoli rocking, oldie and falafel, Scientology, each word is fucking retarded. Rhettmatic on the beat, what the fuck have you started?
The team alive, though. Alive, no, fuck them. It's self-explanatory. Talk to him.
That's where you discovered hip hop, basically, growing up in the Cerritos.
Yeah, pretty much. I got to experience hip hop when it came to the West Coast during the 83, 84, So for me, I started, I experienced it when I was in junior high and stuff. And then from then on, it was, and we didn't even know it was called hip hop. I got to see the birth of what was, obviously hip hop was going on in New York already in the 70s and whatnot, but when it started coming out to the West Coast, in LA for me and stuff, eventually like K-Day started to come on, KGFJ, KGLH, obviously LA was late, but whatever we were getting was like obviously a few years behind and stuff. So, but yeah, I got to experience what was going on, eventually, same thing with everybody across the nation, whatever. Rapper's Delight was my first rap record, but then hearing Planet Rock on a boombox and seeing cats are popping and stuff like that, And you got to understand too, on the West Coast, popping and locking was already, and even though I didn't know this until I got older, but popping and locking was already in full effect. And that's where on the West Coast side of things, popping and locking is a West Coast thing. And obviously b-boying and breaking was an East Coast thing. And a lot of people don't know that Soul Train was majority of it was taped on in Hollywood. And you had the Lockers, and you had, Shabba doing them and rerun, Fred Berry, aka Rerun and stuff, Funk was big also, on the West Coast and stuff. So there was a little kind of like a street culture also going on the West Coast, but it's obviously a little bit different than the East Coast.
We lost a lot of potentially great musicians because maybe at the time they thought, hey, dancing's going to blow up. I'm going to focus full time on that. One of the members of Brotherhood Creed felt that way. Ty, right?
Oh, wow. You did your homework. Well, see, Ty is my best friend. We grew up in Cerritos. So, he was always a dancer, but he was also, he was not really an MC or anything like that. The lead MC, Sean McDuffie, aka the Mac, was the one. He was like one of the best, MCs where I was growing up in Cerritos. But before that, he was one of the best poppers, So like, you got to think about it too. During those days, like in the 80s, you were doing at least 2 out of the 4 elements of hip hop, Me being, Asian or Pacific Islander, a lot of us never really were outspoken. We were pretty much like either DJs or dancer or graph artists. And I couldn't rap for shit. To tell you the truth, I was too shy. And DJ, and basically being a graph writer, because before I was a DJ, I was a popper and a graph artist, and then eventually got into DJing, and I was doing all 3. But then eventually DJing became more my calling, and it was more comfortable because I was a shy kid. But hip hop actually helped me in general. Just became able to find my own voice.
Whose idea was it to put that decal on the back of that Toyota 4Runner in 1995? Your single, Can You Hear It? Requested on the radio, request our single. I mean, talk about Guerilla advertisement. Did that work? Did it create a buzz?
I guess so. I mean, it was different. Well, that was the owner of Up Above Records. If you did your research about it, obviously during those days, especially with the Asians, with the mobile DJ scene, like Northern California had their scene, Southern California had ours. When I connected with Key Cool, at the time there wasn't that many Asian MCs, and if there was, they were corny. For me to connect with an Asian MC was like, they got to be dope and not using our ethnic background just to say, hey, I'm an Asian MC. It's like, nah, you have to be a dope MC that happens to be Asian. That's the same thing for me coming up as a Filipino American. Like during that time, it was only just, basically African Americans, Latinos, and, sprinkled with some Caucasians and what people don't understand during the 80s and for West Coast history, Asian Americans were always part of the hip hop culture on this side, mostly as DJs, dancers, and graph artists. And, there weren't that many at the time, not that many MCs, and if there was, it was kind of corny. And for me coming up, it was kind of like, I hate to say it on some like 8 Mile steez, kind of like where I was coming up, everybody's into it, but when you get to really to experience the real ruggedness of hip hop, the culture of it, like go to the scene, you had to go to LA, you got to go to Hollywood at the time. And coming up, the Asian scene was kind of like a bubble. Like everybody was into everything, whatever was going on, but they would never venture outside. It was coming up during those days. You really had to really work hard, and going back to your question is like I've always felt like it's one thing, he did guerrilla marketing. I always felt that you still, to really get your respect, you got to go into those particular events and really prove, on some, you got to really prove and shit, and then once they see you got skills and you represent, for the most part, they'll respect you, but most of the time they look, who are you? Who's this Chinese guy? And I'm not even Chinese, but they're like, who's this guy? they ain't gonna let you get in a circle unless you really, you really represent and you're really dope.
Yeah, you're a first generation Filipino American. Your mom has been in the U.S. now for over 50 years.
Yeah, my parents came into from the Philippines. They moved to California in 1968.
Yeah, that was a few years after the race riots in South Central Los Angeles, known as the Watts Rebellion.
Yeah. From what I understand, they didn't get their experience all that, but it was interesting because when they moved from the Philippines, they came to LA. They went to Santa Barbara, and then eventually my dad found a job over in Huntington Park, which is in East LA. And I pretty much was born in Huntington Park, which is part of East LA. And then eventually they moved to Cerritos, which is is a suburb, it's a new suburb. And they moved there in 71, 72, I believe, and I pretty much was born and raised there. But what was interesting about Cerritos was like the first, for its kind. I just remember growing up multicultural. And Cerritos at the time was kind of special. And I didn't know it until growing up, how special growing up there. And it's that's why I got exposed to a lot of stuff, especially because of hip hop.
I know Huntington Park, the majority of East LA is gentrifying. I spoke with Eli from Grouch and Eli. He was telling me he grew up in Echo Park, and if he could afford it, he'd move back, which is crazy to think that you can't enjoy the neighborhood you grew up in, even when you've had such a successful career.
From what I understand, looking at the old pictures and looking at history, it was in a nice neighborhood and stuff. Obviously, as time went on, it became more predominantly Latino and stuff. I guess I don't know if it is starting to be gentrified and stuff over there in Huntington Park. They're trying to gentrify a lot of places over there in LA, but there's still pockets where they're not letting like Boyle Heights. They're really fighting hard not to let anyone try to move in there and try to gentrify the place and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. You have to understand with LA, everybody thinks just LA, but LA is just a bit in general, like LA County. It's spread out. It's big. There's LA proper, obviously, but there's within LA County, there's so many cities, a couple of cities in East LA, there's South Central LA, Compton, Watts, whatever. There's South Bay, there's Carson and Torrance and Gardena. Where I live, Cerritos, we're in the border, we're LA County, but we're borderline between Orange County. We're next to Long Beach and Compton and La Mirada and Bellflower. So we're in the outskirts and stuff, so we're in the middle between LA and Orange County and stuff. So, and then you got Orange County itself. And then eventually you go to the Valley, you got to go to the Inland Empire. We're LA spread out, man. It's people don't understand that LA spread out, but obviously when people think of LA, because Hollywood, that's the entertainment capital.
Now, for that, the beat Rhett committed murder, it only consisted of samples from Adrian Young. Did you know how big he was going to be? Because at that point, there wasn't even the Black Dynamite stuff. And you were also going to do a 7-inch back then that was going to be Adrian Young, yourself, Brown Bag All-Stars. It was your idea, and Adrian signed on to do it happily, but it never happened. Just think about what could have been, because this was way before Primo was doing the first Prime album where he only sampled Adrian Young. You did it first.
Actually, they put out the song, but it was funny because I've known Adrian for quite a long time. I'm very, very lucky to know him. I've known him he was a dancer.
Oh wow! So this was before Venice Dawn.
Oh yeah, totally. When I was working at Fat Beats, I remember he came by. He was starting to do a documentary about dancers, especially LA dancers, and it's called Respond to Sound. So it's probably on YouTube. You can Google it and stuff. And he talks about the LA history of like freestyle dancers, like Soul Brothers, who danced for Def Jeff, Scheme Team, Divine Styler. Adrian was also a Polo head. So that's how I know, he was working on that. And then eventually, during that time, he was starting to be a lawyer. The SP1200 was my first machine ever, especially when they reissued it with the black surface, because the original version is gray. And that cost like 2-3 G's. That was expensive during that time for me, that stuff. But I eventually went from SP1200 to an MPC 2000. I bought Evidence's old MPC 2000 when he went to an MPC 2000 XL. I was on that for quite a while, and then eventually went to Reason. And I've been on Reason. I have Ableton, but man, it was a little overwhelming. So I kind of went back to Reason and stuff like that. And then at the end of the day, I look at it as like, I used, obviously coming from the school, like, yo, whoever, you got to use this, you got to use that. To now, like, it really comes down. It's not what the machine you use or software. It's just the person. If you're dope, you're dope. If it comes out, whatever works for you, I mean, perfect example would be Madlib. You know what I'm saying? So how you gonna say keep it real if you didn't? But if you can have the machine, but if you don't make dope beats, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. I think the other flip side too is that like you were you recently revealed you were in a studio session when Dre did Animals with Anderson .Paak. Let me ask you, because it's the names that are in the studio that don't appear on the track that are always interesting. Like you had One Half a Little Brother, you had X to the Z, you were there. What kind of stuff goes on there? Because I was talking to Marco Polo, and he says that he credits you for having a career because you let him into your own studio session.
I was listening to your podcast about that with Marco. Well, God bless Marco. He's my, that's my brother right there.
Was he being too humbling?
It's not even a studio session. It was like just what do you call it? It's some night at the time I was living in Long Beach. So I had I had a garage, which was my studio and stuff like that. And and he was staying down the street. I think he was staying at Revolution's house. So this is the first, we met the first time because it was a Beat Society that would have Knots, Kanye West, Illmind, whoever was making, just making those, dope shit, boom bap shit, It was making noise also, I found out about it because of OK Player and the message boards and all that stuff like that. So finally came out to LA. The first one they had in LA, DJ Khalil from Cell Scientific, Aftermath fame, doing incredible producer. That's my brother right there. They had him, Illmind, Babu, and Jake One. The next time they had it, oh man, they had Marco. That's when I met Marco Polo. Right. They had Kev Brown, Jake, and myself. And to tell you the truth, when that happened, I was like shitting pants because like a lot of people know me as a DJ or just only a producer for Visionaries, but not outside they don't know me for my beats and stuff like that. So when I got asked to be on that, because the first one I just DJ, this one they asked me this time, and I was like, oh shit. And in all honesty, I'm glad it worked out that way because Marco had the heat. I was trying to juggle being trying to make beats and still be a DJ. So, and I wasn't really prepared. All the beats I had that I played during the Beat Society were mostly going to the Visionaries. So I couldn't really give out anything at the time. And Marco had the heat, and basically that's it, man. Shit.
You touched on Key Cool a little bit. You guys are celebrating like 25 years. That track, Reconcentration, where Nishi tells the story of how the U.S. government relocated and locked up over 100,000 Japanese Americans in internment camps. That song is just as important then as it is now with all this political crap that's going on. It's still a very relevant track.
Well, it's crazy because his parents were, he wrote about that because his parents was a part of that internment.
The concentration camps in America were labeled with euphemistic terminology to try and twist the psychology of the public to think that it was okay to put people of Japanese descent away in what they call the camps of relocation. But relocating should be voluntary, yet they were forced in this situation. Even if you were citizens, they were arrested and locked up like prisoners, convicted for the.
So he got to know the history about, he wrote that during when we were making the Cosmonauts album. So this Key Cool, people listening, is Key Cool and Rhettmatic, the Cosmonauts album. It was during the same time that I was doing scratches for Ras Kass' Soul on Ice when he was working on that. So when Raz played Soul on Ice, and he played it for Key and stuff, Key got inspired from that. And, Raz got, gave us the blessings to do something like that, So that's like, an Asian version of Soul on Ice, if you can say, so it was pretty crazy and stuff like that. So
it's important because in the 90s, there were major labels pitching stuff to you that made you feel like you were being exploited or disrespecting you. This predates the Mountain Brothers. I think Booyah Tribe was first, but you guys were breaking down barrier.
Yeah, I mean, the shouts to the Mountain Brothers, the Chops, and them. You know, like they, you know, obviously they were the first one to get signed to a major label, but you know, I think we were the first one to be like independent to officially, you know, get co-signed. I mean, we were, you know, lucky. Got, you know, our album got reviewed in the Source and in Rap Pages. That's a big thing to have. You know, to me is like to have Ras on the album. You know, like Ras. This is the time when Ras was starting to blow up. Like, you know, who's, you know, like he was starting to be compared to like the West Coast version of Nas. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there was. I mean, well, separately. You know, because when Key, you know, before Key and I connected, Key was a solo artist and he was also in some other groups. So, you know, he was shopping his thing and stuff like that, you know, and I guess that's what he had to deal with, right? For me, after I left, you know, got my split from Brotherhood Creed, I had to go back to the lab and can really realize, what do I want to do? You know, like this is, you know, what's my, you know, and I wanted to make boom bap hip hop. And that was the labels, they wanted more hits and stuff. And I didn't really fit into that.
I think right before Dilla passed away in LA, I know when he was in LA, he had a small circle of people that he would hang out with and trust in LA. We talk about boom bap. I think after boom bap, there was G-Funk, right? I think there was an overlap.
No, like boom bap and G-Funk was always in, you know, same thing. With LA, we listened to everything. Even though it was G-Funk, that was still some hip hop shit. It's just, you got to understand, we grew up in funk and stuff like that, right? So funk is part, you know, you know, during those time, we listened to everything. You ask MCA, you ask Snoop, you ask anyone they all grew up listening to KRS-One, BDP, Rakim, and all that stuff. The same thing as they listen to that, and the same listen to whatever was going on in LA and shit, you know, that was what it was. Detroit was listening to, you know, like, you know, techno. LA was listening to like electro funk, which is also like, we played Cybertron. Clear by Cybertron, which is Juan Atkins, is a really well-known Detroit techno producer. You know, cats were popping and breaking the Clear. We thought that was a West Coast shit, but we didn't even know that was Detroit. We were listening to everything. I mean, Prince, Hall & Oates. I mean, whatever was going on, that's what we thought. You know, again, and we didn't listen to breaks until like later on, until Ultimate Breaks and Beats started selling out here in the West Coast, I mean, to LA. This guy named Steve Yano, rest in peace, who was a vendor at the Rhodium Swap Meet. So I'm sure you heard about Dr. Dre's Rhodium Swap Meet mixtapes.
But check it out, right about now, Dr. Dre is on the wheels, and I'm about to cold tear shit up.
Y'all heard, take it from the top. Get that shit, new chump. Power move on.
It was this guy, a Japanese American, selling all these records, and he was one of the first person to get the Ultimate Breaks and Beats out in the West Coast. Dre got those records. That's basically straight out of Compton. Is all Ultimate Breaks and Beats.
Yeah, I thought the G-Funk stuff started with like 213 and all that, or Regulators or something.
No. See, everybody only focus on the G-Funk stuff, but West LA has a lot of history if you delve in. I mean, because you got to think about it, of course. I mean, everyone grew up on where everything was coming from New York. See, what people don't understand too, the history of, like, say, K-Day was the first 24-hour AM hip hop station. They played rap, but they also played everything. They played funk. They played Latin freestyle. They played disco. They played anything that was coming out of New York, but then also was playing here and stuff like that. You know, so we were open to everything. If it wasn't for K-Day, a lot of the New York artists wouldn't be being broken out here and stuff like that. You know, like you ask De La Soul, like De La Soul got broken out in K-Day over here. Same thing with Queen Latifah. Same thing with BDP. I heard about the stories. LL Cool J coming to LA the first time, and he was wearing red, and he's in the Crip in the Crip area. I'm sure you heard the story how everybody had to test De La, thinking that they were soft because they're hippies, quote unquote. But nah, like Maceo and Dave were like hailing people and stuff like that too, and shit like that, you know. And they got to tour with NWA and shit like that. They be all tight, you know. Like, there's a lot of history. A lot of people don't know about it. They just know about because it's given on the video. So I don't know if you don't mind asking, how old are you?
Oh no! When someone asks your age, it's always like, "Oh my God, this guy." But I mean, I'm 34, and when I was getting into music, it was before the internet kind of unified the scene. So I grew up on like the Mannie Fresh bounce Southern hip hop era.
Right. I mean, there's, like I said, there's like, even the history books. There's not a lot of. I mean, it sucks because like there's not a really proper thing for West Coast history, you know, especially for LA. Or even Frisco or whatever, whatnot. I mean, there's just recently Red Bull did something on Uncle Jam's Army, which is dope, you know. But there needs to be more extensive history on LA at least. And you know, and you have to think about it too. Like down south was even for the bounce music, you know, stuff like that. You know, cats were like, you know, like I didn't know DOC was from Dallas. You know what I'm saying?
Same way a lot of people don't realize that Tupac is originally from New York.
Oh, yeah, I know that. MC New York. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody associates him with the Dr. Dre California era.
Right, but I'm saying from my era, we all knew the history. We all wanted to know what's going on and stuff like that. You know, like for me, I was ahead. I was a nerd when it comes to hip hop. Not only for New York, for LA, and when it started becoming bigger, you wanted to know different regions and stuff like that. You know, come on, Devin the Dude was from the Odd Squad. If you listen to Odd Squad, their shit was boom bap. You know, on some New York shit.
My gal, we been apart for a while. Yeah, I miss her kissing, I kinda miss her smile, but I'm the one who fucked up, walking around with the big head. She made me feel like I had a gold-plated dig head, but I was trying to fuck everything that moved and breathed. She never checked or suspect there was something up a nigga's sleeve. Yeah, my baby, she trusted me. She never even cussed at me, except that Friday night when she busted me. Working a radio for show, pussy trying to get some more.
Doing some extensive history, you talk to Mannie Fresh. Dude, his biggest influence is Mantronics.
Which is where Jay Dilla got his producer tag from. I mean, that's where I know about him.
No, but not even that. But Mantronics is like if you listen to Mantronics, dude, he was like ahead of his time and stuff. Every New York and LA was like on, you know, in between was like, and Europe were like big on Mantronics. Mantronics was like, dude. Come on, like, I mean, Cold Getting Dumb, Just Ice was one of his best production work. I mean, the stuff that he was working in doing stuff, we were just like, oh my gosh, you know, he was ahead of his time and stuff like that. It just shows you just how much influence in one way or another and stuff like that. You know, 3 years ago, got to meet Mannie Fresh, and I remember Mannie Fresh before he was with the Cash Money as like, you know, he had a record out. It was on almost like on some Miami-based shit. It was like a DJ Mannie Fresh and Fred. It was oh man.
Record D and Mannie Fresh, y'all. Record D and Mannie Fresh, y'all. DJ Mannie Fresh, y'all. DJ Mannie Fresh, get with it, get stupid.
You know, and he was cutting it up, you know? That's how I know about Mannie Fresh and stuff like that. So it's like, I knew about Mannie Fresh before Mannie Fresh of Cash Money and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know that Two Live Crew is originally from California.
Oh man, so many good stories here, man. I hope you really enjoy podcasting and you continue to keep doing it. I know you're starting to get guests on now, so I hope we can keep sharing this knowledge.
It's pretty cool. To tell you the truth, so the Beat Junkies, it's crazy. Once our 20-year anniversary happened, we didn't realize how much fans are still checking out for us. Like, especially when we did our LA show for their 20-year anniversary, we had both older and younger generation crowds at our show, and it kind of blew our mind. Like, the Junkies never blew up. We were still DJing. We probably wasn't as active literally as a crew, but we were still hanging out and stuff. But it was like, once the 20, like, hey man, we're going to celebrate 20 year. Let's do something. It's like, all right. So, I mean, you can follow, you know, the Visionaries on Instagram at the Visionaries. Some of our listeners doesn't know are not familiar with the Beat Junkies, we're a DJ crew based out of LA, but we're LA and San Francisco. We were known as, one of the three major turntablist crews during the golden era of turntablism during the 90s with the Invisible Scratch Pickles and the Executioners. So, we opened up a DJ school called the Beat Junkie Institute of Sound, located in the city of Glendale. This year will be our third year we've opened. So, knock on wood, it's our way of giving back to the culture and, expand more on the community for the DJ community and stuff, So instead of always complaining about it, we decided to do something about it. For more information, you can go to beatjunkiesound.com. We also have a digital record pool, which is beatjunkies.com. So it's a digital record pool that's curated by us. So anything that we like or people that we'd like their remix or edits, you can go, DJs can sign up for there. We also have an online DJ school, beatjunkies.tv. That's beatjunkies.tv. Go for anyone that wants to learn, that can't go to our school but want to learn, they can learn at our, they can learn online and stuff. We also, do online sessions on there as well. We also have a radio station called Beat Junkie Radio, which is a 24/7 radio station on Dash Radio. It's an app. Yeah, you can download the Dash Radio app. You can also go to online-radio.com/beatjunkieradio. I actually have a show on there. It's called Soundcheck. So it's kind of like on some Stretch and Bobbito wake up show, Friday Night Flavor Steez. I'm playing all the boom bap hip hop shit. Everything from Griselda to Blue and Exiled to Bugsy Nino to Ito to Muggs. Anything I think that's dope raw. That's that shit. So.
You wear many hats, man. Well, thanks for, gracing my podcast with your presence between school, gigs, touring, and lunch with mom on Sundays. I know time is sparse, man. So I want to recognize that. I appreciate you swinging by, man.
I'm honored that you, want me to be on your show. So, thank you for having me. I don't know. I mean, hopefully your listeners enjoy this particular episode. So I might be just rambling here and stuff, but thank you for having me.